Hello and welcome back to day 3 of solving absolute equations. So we're going to do a little bit of review. I'm going to go through the progressions that we've gone on, and at the end I'm going to add a couple new things. Okay, so we're going to review everything we've done so far and then continue on with the progression. So the first thing that we talked about when we were doing these is that we took just the absolute value of -8, and we talked about things on the number line, and that on the number line, absolute value is always talking about distance, and that distance is always a positive number. So what they're asking for here is this is your 0, and we're at -8 because that's the number they're telling us to start on. They're asking us how many steps away from 0 are they? And that distance from -8 to 0 is a positive 8. Now, they're saying if you're over here and you're standing on 9, they want to know what this distance is from 0 to 9. Well, if you count the number of steps, that is also a positive number. It is the number 9. And then in the last example, they're finally adding an x in there and an equal sign. So they're saying what number can they put in for x to get out a 7? And if we're starting at 0 on the number line, we know that we can go this way 7 units and we can go this way 7 units. So what number would we be at so that we are 7 steps away from 0? So we always set up two cases, and one is x equals 7, and the other case is going to be where x equals a -7, so that there are two solutions. What number can we put in for x? Remember, distance is always a positive number. All right, next sample problem here is we did some absolute values with this number here on the inside. And now it doesn't matter whether that's 8 there or not. We know that the two numbers that we're talking about, we're going 10 steps away. And, whoops, we are going -10 steps away. So we're always going to set up two cases with the distance being a 10 and a -10 to get the other value. So we're going to subtract 8 from both sides. So x equals 2. And solving the other one, we're going to subtract 8 from both sides so that we get x equals, and remember to use your calculator so that we are doing this integers, -10 minus 8 is a -18. And if you're unsure if you did your math right, remember you can always go plug it in. So 2 plus 8, does that give us 10? Yes, it does. So now if we go in and we take -18 plus 8, the absolute value of that, well, -18 plus 8 is going to give us a -10. And what is the absolute value of a -10? A positive 10. So does 10 equal 10? So you can always go back in and check your answers to make sure that you did your math right. All right, next sample problem here. We found out that after we dealt with the numbers on the inside, if we have, and this is mainly what we worked on yesterday, if we have a number on this outside, this -6, our job is first to add 6 to both sides of this equal sign so that we end up with the absolute value of x minus 2. Now we canceled this out and we have 0 and then it equals 21. So now we have absolute value equals number, so we can set up our two cases. The first case is going to be without the absolute value marks, and the second case is going to be x minus 2, because remember we're talking about distance, that you could go forward 21 or backward 21 and end up with the right answer because we're talking about distance. So plus 2, so it looks like we can get 23. We're going to add 2, so we get x equals -19. And remember, you can always go back in and plug things in to make sure that it works. So we're filling in this x with a 23. So let's see here, 23 minus 2 minus 6. 23 minus 2 is 21. The absolute value of 21 is 21, and 21 minus 6 is 15, and that's what we originally wanted to get, was 15. So now if we go plug in a negative 19 minus 2 minus 6. Well, negative 19 minus 21, make sure you're minus 2, gives you a negative 21. And the absolute value of a negative 21 is a positive 21, and 21 minus 6 gives you 15. So both check out. Your two answers are negative 19 and a positive 23. All right, then from there, we went to not only numbers on the back end, but also in the front. And remember, when we're solving these, we're trying to get this absolute value all by itself. So in our order of operations, the first thing we're going to move is add 5 to both sides. So we still have this 2 in front, and we still have our absolute value of x plus 4. Negative 5 plus 5 is going to cancel out, and it equals 13 plus 5 is 18. All right, now this says 2 times the absolute value. It's kind of like parentheses here. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2. So now I have the absolute value of x plus 4 equals 9. Now I have absolute value equals a number. That number's positive. So I'm going to set up my two cases, x plus 4 equals 9, and x plus 4 equals negative 9. So we're going to subtract 4. So x equals 5. Subtract 4, and x equals negative 13. So our two solutions are x equals 5 and x equals a negative 13. All right, going on here. So we've got our absolute value, but it looks like we have one number right here. So I am going to subtract 3. 3 minus 3 is 0. So I have x minus 7 equals 0. So now we've always been taught that we're going to set up two solutions here, two different cases. So x minus 7 equals 0. And then we'd set up x minus 7 equals a negative 0. Now, some of you are probably cringing because you're like, negative 0? No, we can't do that. 0 never has a sign positive or negative. And you were right. But if you don't remember that and you just solve this and you add 7 to both sides, you're going to get x equals 7. So if you go over here and you go negative and you add 7 and you add 7 and you say negative 0 plus 7, first of all, I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure your calculator is going to say error if you try to put in a negative 0. But no matter what, if you take that and you add 7, you get 7. So how many solutions do we really have? X equals 7. Isn't that just one number? This case over here is completely unnecessary, and technically you can't really do it because you can't take a negative 0. 0 does not have a sign. So we only have one solution, and this one solution is 7. So we have found out we can either have two solutions, no solution. So if we have the absolute value of anything and it equals negative number, this would be no solutions. And every once in a while in math, we end up with one solution. So this is the new thing. We've talked about the no solutions. We've done numerous examples with two solutions. So this is the new thing. If the absolute value equals 0, you are always going to end up with one solution. Absolute value equals 0 will always end up to be one solution. Okay, so let's do another one here. All right, so we have the absolute value, and I'm going to move this number over here because that says a negative 5. I'm going to add 5. Well, now some of you are going to look at this and say, oh, that equals negative 5, no solutions. No, no, no. Remember, the first thing we need to do is always move this number. So we're going to add 5 and add 5. So now we have the absolute value of 2x minus 1 equals, and what's negative 5 plus 5? That's 0. So now for it to be equal to 0, remember we cannot set it up to be equal to negative 0, so we're just going to set it up 2x minus 1 equals 0. We're going to add 1, so 2x equals 0 plus 1 is 1, and we're going to divide both sides by 2, so x is 1/2. Okay, that is the only solution. We have one solution here because x equals 0. Okay, one solution. All right, last sample problem for today. So when we look at this, you see a 10 and you see a minus 10. If you look at this sample here that we just did, do you see how they're both negative 5s? When you look right here, do you see how this says negative 5 and this says negative 5? That's when it came out to be 0. When we did this one, it's a plus 3 and a positive 3 over here. The signs are the same. That's when it ended up being a 0. Now in the problem that we have here, when we do our work and we have our absolute value, so we're going to add 10, we have 4x equals 10 plus 10 is 20. Now that number's not 0, so I know when I set this up, I'm going to have 4x equals 20 and 4x equals negative 20. Divide by 4, so it looks like x is 5. Divide by 4, and it looks like x is negative 5. So here we're going to have two solutions. So if the absolute value equals 0, one solution. If the absolute value equals a negative number, we have no solutions. And if the absolute value equals a positive number, then we have two solutions. All right, so today is going to have a mix of all of them. You might have a one solution, you might have a no solutions, but most of them are going to be giving you two solutions. Good luck. Your assignment will be a Schoology homework quiz like we've been doing, and it's absolute value equations, day 3.